Educational Communications and this station present Environmental Directions with Nancy Pearlman. On this series, we explore the effects of human influence on the Earth's ecosystems and discuss solutions to environmental problems which affect the quality of life on this planet. Environmental Directions gives you the kind of information you need to help you participate in decisions impacting your community, the nation, and the world. Now, here's your host, Nancy Pearlman.
Hello, my guest is Jeanette Chasworth. She calls herself the Color Whisperer. She is qualified by the American Society of Interior Designers and is a certified interior designer. She's also an integrated healing practitioner. Welcome, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Something that's not talked about too often is how important it is to have color in our life, in our environment, and how the colors in our environment affect our physical and emotional health. What is the significance of color?
Color is so important. It's all around us, in our homes, on our bodies. It's everywhere. It influences what we think, how we feel, what we do. For instance, if you go in restaurants, you're going to see a lot of red and orange because they make your food taste better and they make you hungry. When you see a restaurant that's got a lot of red and orange together, they also want you to get out quick because that combination has got a really high energy and they don't want you hanging out very long. In comparison, today's coffee shops, where they want you to hang out, you don't see those colors. You're more likely to see teals and plums.
Why do we see white in hospitals and doctors' offices?
White is because it makes you think it's clean. Whether it is or it isn't, it makes you think it's clean. That's why hotels always have white sheets as well. Another thing they use in hospitals is you'll see a lot of blue because blue actually helps to retard the disease. When you wear the hospital gowns, they're usually kind of a light blue, where they have blue in them. And that's actually helping you to feel better. Blue also helps you to not realize the passage of time as much.
Let's talk about the colors in our interior environments in three places that people spend so much time. Workplaces, offices, schools, and their home. Does it make a difference what color you have in a classroom? Does it make a difference what color is in an office in terms of productivity? And in our own homes in terms of how we feel and relax and be rejuvenated?
Absolutely, and especially right now when we're doing all three at home, we really got to be aware. In schools, the color yellow actually helps you to learn better, so that's why you have yellow pads. If you're taking a test, wear some yellow. As far as the work environment goes, especially with a lot of people working from home, there's a lot of different colors to use. It depends on what the function is. And so one of the things I like to do is I use a wardrobing technique that matches the colors, shapes, textures to your energy. There are certain things that need one kind of energy and another. So for instance, when I need to be really creative, I go into my living room, which is my creative color, which is yellow. That just lets those creative juices flow. Now my office is a little bit more of a grounded color and it helps me do the other side of the brain, all the paperwork. What color is going to be good for you in the office really depends on what you do there. If you're doing a lot of talking or writing, you want to have colors that are more friendly and outgoing. If you're doing more clinical work, then you need to have colors to back that up.
I remember growing up where apparently boys were supposed to have blue rooms and girls were supposed to have pink rooms, and I hated the pink room, and I couldn't wait until I was a teenager and said, I want my yellow room.
Yeah, I'm not big on the pink and blue. I do think it's really important that kids have a say in what room they are. Kids especially are more in tune with that gut that knows what they need. Years ago, I had a client, and this was about 5 years after the 9/11 incident, and the 9-year-old was still sleeping in the same room with mom and dad. And I was like, what's up with this? And she said, she's still having nightmares over 9/11. And she didn't know anybody in the towers. So we went in her room, and Mom had created this wonderful little princess room for her, and there were these wide stripes on the wall. Well, the little girl was dyslexic, and those wide stripes were constantly shaking for her. They weren't standing still, so it looked just like the towers did right before they fell. So for her, 9/11 never ended. I told her about yellow. I said, that's going to help her learn more, and you get rid of these stripes, and these nightmares are going to go away. And she says, she spends all of her time in the living room. We can't get her out of there, and there's a lot of yellow. So this little girl girl knew what she needed. She didn't know what it was.
I think that color in our lives is sort of an afterthought. People don't realize the impact. We've been talking about the interior colors, but what about the exterior? I am sitting here looking out of windows with green vegetation.
Yes.
And occasionally one of the plants will flower. And people love flowers. I mean, think of our holidays and special occasions. People give bouquets of flowers, of color. And I love looking at the yards, the plants outside. Should we be sure to include not just the green trees, but plants that flower throughout the year and provide other color in our outdoor environment?
Oh, yeah. The colors that you use for your flowers and your plants is really important. We need to go outside. We need to feel that nature, and seeing those colors is going to have an impact on you there. As the color whisperer, I'm so bored of all these like white and gray. Now, there's some people who need those colors, okay? It's the same thing with our yards. Our yards are a great way to have a lot of color. And if you're really clever, flowers that bloom at different points of the year so that you always have color in your yard.
And we can also use color in creative ways by potted plants. I'm looking at one that has beautiful painting on it, a design, and the pots can be different colors and shapes. It sort of goes hand in hand that you need a variety of looks, and of course patios or walkways that have the beautiful red sandstone. It's so gorgeous to look at.
All of these things affect us. Color is all around us, and it is one of the most neglected tools that we don't use, because you can use color to change your mood. If you're having a bad day, you can literally go change your clothes, and it's going to help improve your day.
You're calling this the wardrobing technique, that you're using color in our clothes to also think about how we have color in other places in our life?
Exactly. So there's 4 parts to my whispering. One is color theory, which everybody who is a designer knows. Color psychology, which is really important to know what effect that color is having on you. And then I call it the personality of color. And that is a wardrobing technique, because we're all works of art. Each one of us has our own set of blueprints as far as what colors, shapes, and textures reflect our energy. And so when you use those colors, whether it's in your clothes or in your home, you feel more alive.
It's certainly important that we think about our environment, indoors, outdoors, but it's also important to me to get out into the natural world and see what the natural colors are. We know we have blue skies, we have blue-green lakes, oceans, rivers, the sandstone, the granite stone, different colors from the plants to the animals to the rocks and geology. It's great to see that variety.
God is the greatest artist, and he puts colors together in a way that we can't even compare. You go look at a sunset, or one of the wonderful things about being up early is you get to see the sunrise. It's just amazing. There's so many ways that nature feeds us color, and it literally feeds our soul. Just slow down a little bit and just look at what beautiful things are in nature around you.
Now that we've talked about the importance of color, people might want to start thinking about repainting the outside of their buildings, the inside of the buildings. And then we have to talk about the ecological impact of making that change, because paints in the past have been very toxic, and they are still considered toxic. The used paint cans aren't supposed to go in the trash. So what do you recommend in terms of recycling paint, reusing paint? What's going on?
So I work with a company called Acrylatex, and they have an amazing recycling reuse program. They take all your old paint, whether it's hard or whether it's still wet, they'll take it and they use it into new paint. So it is not VOC free, because they can't take the VOC out if you have VOCs. They have a line of recycled paint that's available at Habitat for Humanity stores and Amazon, a few other places.
As a conservationist and an environmentalist, we have adopted the color green as our color. Green economy, green technology, making things green. Is it because the environment outside has so much green?
I think that when you think of a lot of the green missions, a lot of it has to do with trees, which are green. And when you think of nature, I think that's the first color that comes to mind. Green is also a color of change. It's a healing color, and it's a color that helps people deal with change. And I think that's a big part of what the green mission is let's heal the planet and let's create some change so that we can have a sustainable planet.
You call yourself an integrated healing practitioner. Mm-hmm. What is that?
There's a couple parts to that. So years ago, I had my asthma, and I was cured by an energy healer, and I was fascinated by it, and I've learned several techniques, and the integrated healing practitioner is one of them. Because of my technique with the wardrobing, I tend to get a lot of people who are going through some major life changes. For instance, divorce, widows, empty nesters, and there's an element of grief that they are processing through. The wardrobing technique that I use is very helpful in showing them what their beauty, the beauty in their home, and it gives them a strong foundation to take the next step forward. For people who are open to the energy healing, I can take that another step forward for them in helping them get through that process, and I can do home energy clearings.
We've talked about colors in the built environment, the natural environment, the plant environment, but let's talk about the colors for animals, because there's such a variety, and some animals use color to let people know we're poisonous, don't eat us. Some animals have spots to blend into the natural environment. Some have color to stand out so that people know they're there. And domesticated animals have such a variety of color. There are a lot of animals, millions of species, and they have an incredible variety of color. Why?
Well, God is the ultimate artist. And these animals have different colors. Some of them are there to hide. Some of them are there so that it helps them to live better in their environment. A funny story about my cat. So I've got a gray tabby. I was driving down the street one day, and I was like, that's my cat. That's Dickon. And I was like, he's the same color as the asphalt. And I was thinking about it. I'm like, oh, I really shouldn't let him out so much. I can't keep him in. He needs to be out. And I was worried about him, and I'm like, you know what? If he falls into the colors, he can also hide from a lot of things, too. And so his color keeps him safe because he can hide from a lot of the other animals and people. He just kind of disappears into the bushes.
Indeed, camouflage is so important.
Camouflage.
And yet some animals have very wild, bright colors to attract their mate, to be able to tell another animal that they're poisonous. So it's a whole range of reasons that we see such beautiful colors in our animals.
Absolutely. I mean, look at a peacock's tail. Oh, wow.
Everybody enjoys those colors.
Right?
I want to thank you so very much for explaining why color is so important in our lives, in our environment, how it affects us. Thank you very much for being my guest.
Oh, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. I'm happy to help. I love educating people on how important color is because it's such an easy tool to use.
Thank you. I have been speaking with Jeanette Chasworth, who is the Color Whisperer, an integrated healing practitioner, and a certified interior designer. I'm Nancy Pearlman. Thank you very much for joining us, and do tune in again next week.
If you would like free information about these environmental issues, go to www.ecoprojects.org or call 310-559-9160. Environmental Directions with your host, Nancy Pearlman, is a community affairs program of the nonprofit organization Educational Communications and this station.